I can stay up all night. It's all cool. Whatever, you know. I don't care if he drips on the floor. Everything's great. Everything's great. And then life comes, and this is okay?
That's it.
There are times when marriage and life and all that comes with it are going to just drain us. That is just going to happen. So we can't be taken off guard. We have to know we're going to have those days where we really have nothing left. But then what do you do on those days? I love this verse in Psalm. It says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." When we've given all we can give, the only thing we can do is cling to God. Our natural response when we're exhausted is what? Lay down, look down, collapse in some way under the pressure, either through stress or being snappy or whatever. But if we instead took all of that physical and emotional exhaustion and we just turned it over to God and let him, instead of looking down, if we look up, it's going to change. We have to drop this idea that life is easy and that we always have it together. We talked about that today at our table, that we look at other people and everybody's got it together. We don't always have it together. We are not going to always have it together. We are going to have bad days. We're going to have really hard days, and that's just part of it. And I think we'll be better equipped to handle them if we realize, I'm going to have a bad day. It's okay. But where do we look? Not down. We're going to look up and filter everything through his word. I think if we do that, we won't be defeated. We'll be lifted instead. So the action step for this one is lift your eyes and your heart to God. When you are empty, we have to look up to him and allow him to fill us up and to fuel us up. So we've covered these two aspects, and some of you are probably going, wow, she's like a naysayer, like this isn't very encouraging. But I want to just challenge you to look at it a little bit differently. When we're real in what we expect, if we expect it to be bliss, and if we expect ourselves to be superwoman, we're going to be floored when it's not. But if we know we're going to have hard days, and we know we're going to get tired, we will be able to prepare ourselves, and we will be able to press through them. Much less likely to give up. If I know, like, if someone had sat down with me and said, you know what, you're going to have days where you don't think you're going to make it through. And you know what? Everybody has those days. And you will get through. Thankfully, I have those kind of people around me now, but I didn't back then. And so, for me, I'm not negative about marriage. Not at all. No way. But it does take strength, and it takes persistence. We've been conditioned that difficult is bad. Difficult isn't bad. It just takes strength to get through. And I don't know anybody who doesn't want to be strong. I mean, we all want to be strong. But that's strength of character, and that kind of strength doesn't come in the nail salon or the mall. It comes in the trenches. And it comes developed through trials and struggles and getting through things and seeing, I can do this with God. I can do this with people beside me that will tell me the truth and not baby me, but will make me strong. I am so thankful that I am not the woman I was 20 years ago, and that I'm not the woman I was 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, or even last year. To me, I think that more says, if you're still here, he's still working on you, right? Like, none of us are there. We still have things to learn. We have ways to grow, and we have to embrace those. Okay, so we've talked about what to expect. Now let's talk about how to handle it. The life of a warrior wife requires determination. The story for this week is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and probably most of you have heard that. It's a story of 3 friends, and they lived in a time, we hear the story and we think about it and we think, oh, that's really weird, like the king brought them before this huge statue and asked them to bow down, but that was normal in their time. It wasn't really a weird, uncommon thing. It was a time of idol worshiping, and it was a normal thing. That's what the kings did. It wasn't uncommon for them to say, everybody come, gather, you have to bow down, and that's just the way it is, and everybody did it, and then they went on their way. Well, they didn't do it. They stood up, and they said, we're not going to bow down to that silver, whatever it is. The text reads, if our God is able to save us, he will. And even if he doesn't, we will serve him anyways. We will not serve your God and worship the idols that we made. And so what happens? The king says, because the punishment for not bowing down is getting thrown into the furnace. That was the normal punishment. This wasn't like an in-the-moment thing the king made up. That was what he said going in. But what does he say when they don't bow down? Because everybody bowed down, but they stood up. He ups the ante by ordering the furnace to be increased to 7 times as hot as it normally would. And I love that part of the story. Now that may sound weird, but that is what happens when we stand up often. We get more resistance, not less. And often our situation gets worse before it gets better when we stand with God. It's not uncommon. We need to remember that. And I love that they weren't derailed. They didn't go, oh, 7 times hotter. They're going to burn regardless, right? It doesn't matter. It's a fire. But the king is like, it's going to be 7 times hotter of a fire. I don't even know how you make a fire 7 times hotter. If that's even real, it's probably not even real. So going into the furnace, they didn't know what God was going to do, and they said that. I don't know if our God is going to save us. He might, but even if he doesn't, we're still not going to. That is where their faith came in. We know from reading the story that they were saved, but before they went in, they didn't know they were going to be saved. They hoped they were going to be saved, and they prayed that they were going to be saved, but they did not know that walking into the fire. They were willing to do what was right, regardless. And they were willing to trust God. And I think our testimony in that, when you think of your marriage, we have choices. We're either going to do it God's way or we're going to do it our way. And sometimes God's going to step in and intervene, and sometimes miracles happen, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes our testimony is in what we do, not what happens because of what we do it. I mean, your kids are watching you, right? Your neighbor's kids are watching you. People are watching, and they're going to see, how does she respond? Who is this woman? So, to me, we have to stop thinking about, I'm going to do this, because if I do this, God's going to bless me, and he's going to make everything perfect in my marriage. But he is going to bless you. And you are going to be a testimony if you stand with him. It's totally different. I love that they stood in spite of his threats, because I know myself. I'd love to think that I stand every time in spite of threats, but honestly, when we're tired and threats come, sometimes we just cave. So I love this story as an example of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I am going to go forward with God, and I'm going to let him decide what happens. That's where determination comes in. The definition of determination is firmness of purpose, and I love that. One thing that drives me crazy about our world today is we're conditioned to give up. If you're not happy in that group, just quit it. If you're, someone makes you mad, don't be their friend anymore. If that class is too hard, give up. How many people made New Year's resolutions? Nobody made a New Year's resolution. You guys are lying. Have you ever made one in your life?
Yeah.
Ever broken one in your life?
Yes, that's why we don't make
That's
it.
why
I'm not doing that anymore. We're smart. Been there, done that.
We are wise women.
So,
Yeah.
I know very few people that have made like a New Year's resolution and then kept it for the rest of their life. Because most of them are kind of like for life things, right? They're either I'm going to eat healthy, or I'm going to exercise, or I'm going to stop smoking, or whatever it is. They're for life. They're not like I'm going to be healthy for a year, or a month, or we quit. We're conditioned to quit, and we think it's okay. And it carries over into our marriages, and I know probably most of you sitting here, you're here, would say, I would never get a divorce. But what do you quit? Do you quit trying? Do you quit giving everything you have? Do you quit having a good attitude? Do you quit treating your husband the way you did what you just talked to me about when you first met him, when you were looking forward to marrying him? Do you treat him that way, or did you quit treating him that way? And when did you quit, and why? Those are things that we have to think about. 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. So here's what I want